It's the VC Show. What's up? I'm Vince Carter, and my podcast, The VC Show, is coming back. Season 2 of The VC Show is going to be bigger and better than ever. Every week during the NBA season, I'll give you my real insights and opinions on the league.
Vinsanity reigns supreme.
Subscribe to the pod and listen to The VC Show with me, Vince Carter, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's the VC Show.
It's brand new, Season 2. I'm Marissa Thalberg.
And I'm Stephen Wolf-Bedeta, and we're excited to be back having bigger, bolder, and always real conversations.
Straight from the C-suite front lines of marketing, media, and more.
We have great friends joining from people you may know, like Vilmer Valderrama and Bobby Burke.
And people you'll want to know. So grab a coffee or, hey, even an Aperol Spritz and come join us on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart.
Listen to brand new on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's good? It's Colleen Witt, and Eating While Broke is back for Season 3. Brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. We're serving up some real stories and life lessons from people like Van Lathan, DC Young Fly, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and many more. They're sharing the dishes that got them through their struggles and the wisdom they gained along the way. We're cooking up something special, so tune in every Thursday. Listen to Eating While Broke on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
If you love comedy, movies, and Hollywood satire, you're going to want to listen to a brand new podcast called Get It to Dutch.
In Get It to Dutch, we play 3 aspiring screenwriters on a quest to get a script to big-time Hollywood producer Dutch Huxley.
Each week on the podcast, we perform a movie script right before your ears.
It's like going to a movie with your eyes closed.
And we have amazing guest stars, including Tim Robinson, Rob Hubel, Lily Sullivan, Jamie Moyer, and Weird Al Yankovic.
Listen to Get It to Dutch, a screenwriter's journey on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If someone asked you to name a queer icon, who would you say?
Britney, Christina, Shirley Bassey, Tina, Madonna, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey.
Bruce Springsteen. This is Because the Bus Belongs to Us, a serious journalistic quest to get Bruce Springsteen recognised as the queer icon we know that he is. Listen to Because the Bus Belongs to Us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Episode 415, How Catherine Paid Off $27,000 in student loans in 5 months.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to Frugal Friends podcast. It's debt-free summer, and we are playing another debt-free story for you. Woo, 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 woo. This is from our listener, Catherine, and Catherine was such a joy to talk to last year. She is so young and just on such a great path and so full of life. And if you have a student that just recently graduated college or high school, or you are a young person who recently graduated, then I think you're really going to like Catherine's story, or you're going to want to pass it on to someone.
And we've got some fun updates afterwards where Catherine has told us kind of what has happened in life since becoming debt-free. So stick around after we replay this interview to hear where she's at now. And well, Jen and I will share a little bit of our own little.
Yeah. And if you want to see Catherine's interview in real life, you can head over to our YouTube channel. It's Frugal Friends on YouTube. We have all 10 debt-free stories over there. But if you're not a video person, then we are playing them every week this summer. 10 weeks. It's debt-free summer, baby.
It's not hot girl summer. It's debt-free summer.
Debt-free summer.
We're still hot, but we're
becoming
hot
debt-free. And debt-free, yes. But first, this episode is brought to you by your first job. Your first job out of school. So fresh, so young, so bright, so naive. And your first job may or may not have enrolled you automatically, without you knowing it, into a 401k. And that's great. We love that. We love that businesses do that because out of sight, out of mind, and you're just saving on autopilot. But if you left that job to move to greener pastures, or maybe browner ones, I don't know, then you are going to want to take back control of that 401k, because once you leave your employer, then you no longer control that money. It's still yours, but you're probably going to be paying holding fees. It may not be invested where you want it. So you want to roll it over into an IRA. If that is too complex for you to even wrap your mind around, 401k to IRA rollovers, brokerage to brokerage, I get it. But that's why we have partnered with Capitalize. Capitalize is a service that will actually find your 401k for you and then help you roll it over for free into an IRA of your choice, whether that's a robo-advisor or a do-it-yourself brokerage. They're going to help you figure it out. frugalfriendspodcast.com/capitalize. Let your first job be just a pleasant memory and not one that haunts you.
Because you left behind your retirement investing there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great.
Yeah. So we have a lot on the horizon this summer with debt-free stories. But if you missed last week's episode 413, we had how Megan paid off her $20,000 of debt as a teacher. And then we have a lot of episodes in general about debt. So like episode 276, which debt should you pay off first? Just search back in our archives. So many debt payoff stories over the last 6 years. You will not, and we have always tried to serve a diverse set of stories of people who've paid off debt. So big amounts, small amounts, short periods of time, longer periods of time, different income brackets, kids, no kids. So that's always been super important to us, that if we're going to share somebody's story, that it's relatable to not as many people as possible, but to specific of the groups as possible.
Yeah, there are favorites when you get to hear from other people and especially when you're able to find someone with a similar story to you and hear what did they do? What ended up working for them? And kind of figure out what is this going to look like for you then? Because no one person's journey is going to be exactly the same as another's, but collectively we can learn from one another. So it is one of our favorite things to do through interviews and the only series we ended up putting on YouTube. So we're excited to share it here and let's get into it. Let's hear from Catherine.
And we have a very special guest today, a listener of Frugal Friends, just like you all watching. Catherine is here to share her story. Welcome, Catherine. We're so glad to have you.
Yes, welcome, Catherine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be in a position to talk about being debt-free.
So, Catherine, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Do you have children? Where do you live? Give us a little bit of a background on who you are and little sneak peeks into this debt-free story.
Yeah, so I am 22, so I still live at home with my family, which will be a big part of the story that I'm talking about. But I graduated college this past May. And am now working full-time in HR. It sounds boring, but I really love it. And then I also have my part-time job that I kept from college where I work as a bridal sales consultant. And that's purely because I think it's such a fun job. But yeah, so I live at home. I have my dog, Misty, and my fish, Henry. So they're always kind of local, but I'm right outside of Boston and I've lived here my whole life.
Nice. And so where did you go to school?
Yeah, so I went to Bryant University. It's in Rhode Island. So it's about an hour away from where I live now. I was on campus until COVID hit, kind of flipped everything upside down. So my junior year, I was virtual. And then my senior year, I chose to commute to campus.
Nice, Catherine. I'm feeling the build up to this debt payoff story. Can you tell us how much was it? How long did it take you? Give us all the deets.
Yeah, so all of the debt I had was from student loans. And to be honest, COVID was the first time I really started to take a look at money because I think like many of my friends, I was in the mindset of, oh, you go to college, you get debt, and that's just what happens. It racks up, but it's for the experience. And when I was sent home and I was virtual, it really made me pause and look at what I was spending on room and board and just how much money it was. And when I did out the math and realized if I make some changes, I was going to graduate with over $120,000 in debt. And I was like, that is not feasible. I don't want to have that. So that's when I made some of the changes to decide to commute my senior year. So that cut out a lot of room and board costs, but would still leave me at a point where I would graduate with about $27,000 in student loans. So I'd say fall semester of my senior year, around the time I found your podcast, I decided that I wanted to be able to pay off my debt as fast as I could. I was really lucky in that the two jobs that I have right now, my full-time job and my part-time job, are local to where I live. So I was fortunate that I could stay at home. So as I graduated in May, I started to look at what my monthly income would be, knowing that my expenses were very limited, right? I don't have to pay rent, which I'm very grateful for. And then I wanted to see how I could best set myself up. So I looked at my retirement options, so my 401k and my Roth IRA, and then set aside any expenses that I did have, see what was left over. And I thought that I would just start putting as much of that toward my student loans. I had a pretty high interest on one of them. It was about like 8 or 9%. So I really wanted to get that one down. And as I made it to about August, I realized as I was paying off my debt, I wasn't contributing anything to my short-term savings that I built up through college. And I was like, I weighed the options of dipping into my savings a little bit to kind of help expedite this, knowing that it wouldn't grow in my mind until I paid off debt, again, being the lucky position I was to live at home. So I did choose to dip into debt a little bit to help pay off the $27,000. And then this past October, so it was just a few weeks ago, I was able to make my final student loan payment, which just felt so good. It was such a weight lifted off my shoulders, where now I feel like as I'm still living at home, I can now more focus on the savings I need to be able to move out and be comfortable knowing that I won't have to worry about my student loans anymore.
That's amazing, Catherine, to prioritize that so quickly after graduating. Like, I waited years to pay off my debt after graduating because I was just so worried about it. And to do it in 5 months. So I wonder, were there any times over that 5 months that you hit any roadblocks or hardships that made you second guess or question like what you were doing?
Yeah, I would say I had a constant battle with myself of like, all right, am I being too crazy here wanting to pay it off? Am I missing out on opportunities? And that's when I really, honestly, I listened to the values-based budgeting episode so many times over the summer, because I really started to think about what I valued and what I would be spending my money on anyway. So there were a couple of times where, my friends would go out to dinner, things would be expensive, and I would really be like, oh, if I wasn't paying off debt, I would go. But then at the same time, I don't like spending a ton of money going out, so it wasn't worth it. So I think all those hiccups was a lot of really good self-reflection to debate if something was worth it. And, each month was a little bit inconsistent, but I think I really tried to focus on spending money on what I valued and not necessarily sacrificing that to pay off debt, but be as intentional as possible.
Well done, Catherine. And how encouraging to hear what a benefit that values-based spending episode was.
So much.
Listen to that on repeat. I normally think about listening to songs on repeat, not like financial episodes, but it really benefited you and allowed you to have freedom in some of that process of debt payoff, not just deprivation.
You think it will
that's
be.
That's amazing to hear. But we're also curious about income for you. Can you tell us a bit about what your income was during the debt payoff, if it increased at all? What did that look like?
Yeah. So when I started paying off debt, I was at my full-time job, and that salary hasn't changed. So that's remained the same. And I would say about a month into that is when I continued with my second job. I wanted to give myself a month to make sure I could, get acclimated. Mm-hmm. So I work my 40 hours a week of my salaried job, and then I should have done this math sooner, 14 hours a week of my other job. So combined, because other job is commissions, it averages a little bit. It brings me up to somewhere between 75 and 80, which I'm really grateful for. To be able to have allowed me to pay off the debt and then focus on retirement income. But it's been about the same since I started paying off debt.
Okay, cool. And so you did focus on some retirement while you paid off the debt.
Yeah. So with my full-time paycheck, I was able to reroute the money going to my 401k automatically. So I was like, all right, if I never see it, it'll be like I'm never losing it. So it just would go there. And then I did the same thing with Roth IRA payments. I would automatically take it out of my account. I found for me that was the best way to make sure I was focusing on retirement at the same time, because I think if I had to move it in myself, I would be like, all right, well, debt, retirement, it would have been a lot harder of a decision. So automating that was really helpful for me.
That's so great. Well done automating that investing for retirement while paying off debt. And now that you are debt-free, what's your next financial goal? What are you going to do with your finances now?
So I guess I have two answers there. So in terms of my next financial goal, I'm aiming to start saving up for a housing deposit, whether that be an apartment, a condo, something. I think as lovely as the housing market has been, I realize if I'm able to buy instead of rent, that's something I want to do, or at least be in a position where I can buy sooner rather than later. So that's definitely my next financial goal. And I talked a little bit about how I'm really trying to be more intentional with spending. I think that's something I'm still trying to work on every day, especially getting into the holiday season. The temptations are real. So I think this will be a good time to really focus in on that and not be, I love shopping. I love a good deal. So I really want to make sure this holiday season I can stay true to that and not get off course.
That's great, Catherine. That's I love it. To be doing as well as you're doing at 22 is incredible.
Yes, taking advantages of the things that you are being given and can take advantage of is amazing. So now that you have paid off this debt, you've achieved this goal, you're working on your next financial goal. What words of wisdom, what would you say to someone who is where you were when you started, when you had this epiphany of how much student loan debt you had, and should I take out more? What should I dip into savings? What would you say to you at the beginning of this?
Yeah, so I guess I have kind of points. So first, when I think back to freshman year and I knew what I was getting into with loans, I really just didn't think about what the cost was, because I knew everyone had student loans and that's just what you did. And I was like, I'll take it, whatever, I'll pay them off for as long as I need to. And I wasn't as involved as I should have been in that process. So I would say to anyone in that position, whether it's for your undergrad or grad school, really think about the loan value, what it covers, if living on campus is really important to you, if there are ways you can save money that way. And then when it comes to the actual process of paying it off, that the number really is the scariest part. If you had asked me 2 years ago if I would have paid off all my debt in 5 months, I would have said you were absolutely crazy. Because I think once you really sit down and make a plan, of course, depending on your circumstances, that'll kind of dictate how long it takes and what you're comfortable with. But having that plan made this so much easier when I could really break down and see, all right, what was my disposable income? What am I comfortable putting away? Am I in a position to use some of my savings? And that really made it so much simpler, because the number was just the most daunting part at first.
Such great advice, Catherine, for anyone considering taking out student loan debts.
Yeah.
When you think back to that time, were there any things that you were not excited to give up, or thought that you'd have to give up and it was just really going to suck? Or what did that look like? Was there deprivation involved?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was, I would say prior to really focusing on debt, eating out and food were, of course, always one of the biggest expenses, especially throughout college. So I knew that would be something I would have to really rein in and cut down. But I think on the flip side, I found other ways to have fun with that. So instead of going out as often as I did with some of my friends, they would come over and we would cook together. And it didn't always come out as good as when you go out to eat, but it was something that was really fun. So I think And that's something I'm continuing now, is really trying to find ways of, all right, so I like hanging out with friends. I don't want to spend money out, but if we cook together, we're achieving kind of the same outcome. So that worked out really well.
That's great. Yeah. I think it is like seeing the number on the screen and thinking about the things that you'll have to give up to get rid of it is a big barrier for a lot of people to paying off debt. Like that was my story. That was the big thing that kept me from paying off debt for so long. But I think it kind of forces you into this creativity mode where you're trying to meet the same values, the things that you value most, in a more creative way. And so instead of depriving yourself, you're just trying to get creative. And I did bring some of that stuff with me, like past debt payoff. Some of it I left behind, but some of it, I did carry with me.
Yeah, exactly. Because even another example there is my boyfriend and I love to travel, and I had never really been camping. He had introduced that to me. And that's been such a fun way for us to be able to like frugally travel. We love spending time in New Hampshire. And for us, it's not really realistic to spend a lot of money on hotels or motels, especially in the summer. Like camping is great because we get to be there and it's like $20 a night to stay, which is awesome.
Oh, good for you, Catherine. I'm a little bit more of an RV camper myself.
I'm more of a hotel camper.
However, summers in the north, tent camping, like I get it. That's the best of what you're going to get there. So you found a great way to travel and do fun things on a budget, which is amazing. But what's even more amazing is this accomplishment of paying off $27,000 of student loan debt in just 5 months as a 22-year-old. This is unbelievable. And how would you we just want to give you opportunity to celebrate however you want to celebrate. What do you want to do, Catherine, to celebrate this debt payoff?
I did it!
Woo! We're matching you. Yeah, you did it. That is amazing.
Like it's crazy. I just saying it out loud that I paid it off. Yeah.
Congrats, Catherine. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I hope that it inspires other listeners, other people in their 20s and beyond to pay off their student loans sooner, no matter what situation they are, but especially if they're younger, if you're younger and have a lot of resources available to you that you may not have when you're older and you've got kids and responsibilities.
Because I feel inspired. I mean, goodness, she's done more with her debt payoff than we did at 22. So collecting debt.
Yeah.
But even just the way that you have chosen to make such good decisions with your finances, how that's now going to carry out throughout the rest of life, you've really set yourself up so well. And we're so glad to have you here sharing your debt payoff story, but also as a fellow Frugal Friends listener, to be a small part of this journey, finding your values and just crushing debt so quickly. Well done. We're celebrating you today, Catherine.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me to let me kind of talk about this journey. And thank you for everything that you do. Honestly, your podcast was a huge reason that I was able to do this. I found you guys my junior year in college, and this really helped set me up for success. So really, thank you so much for everything that you do.
Yeah, again, just like honored to play a small part in your story. That our little podcast can provide inspiration to you. So well done.
You did it. You put in the hard work, and that's on you, Catherine. Well done.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for watching this debt-free story. If you liked it, then please subscribe to the Frugal Friends podcast YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, and hit notifications on YouTube to be notified.
It's the VC Show. What's up? I'm Vince Carter, and my podcast, The VC Show, is coming back.
4 on 1 up. Oh, my Carter! Well, that's what they came to see.
Season 2 of The VC Show is going to be bigger and better than ever. Every week during the NBA season, I'll give you my real insights and opinions on the league.
Oh, nice move by Carter! What? Yes, indeed!
I have a lot to talk about, and it won't always be basketball. If you listen to the show, you will get to know me, my life, and the things I care about. My family, friends, golf, music, and much more.
Vinsanity reigns supreme.
Subscribe to the pod and listen to the VC Show with me, Vince Carter, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, it's over! It's over, ladies and gentlemen.
It's the VC Show.
What's good? It's Colleen Witt, and Eating While Broke is back for Season 3. Brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. We're serving up some real stories and life lessons from people like Van Lathan.
TMZ was starting a tour. Harvey came and took the tour. By July, I'm on TV every day. I endear myself to the audience. He comes in, he goes, "We're going to give you a raise." I think maybe a year, 2 years after that, I was a producer.
DC Young Fly.
It wasn't really no way for us to make income off of Vine like that. It was more so notoriety. Once that popped off, it was like people was following it. And I didn't know how big it was. I didn't know people was doing this on their spare time. I was, don't do that, kids. That's bad. It was crazy that it had to be that real and that harsh.
Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Our mission was we was telling everybody in the hood, we finna go meet Eazy-E. We about to come back and do a video. Of course, we didn't know, so we was lying like a mother.
Little do we know, we speak in reality and we gonna come back with a bus and camera crew.
And many more. They're sharing the dishes that got them through their struggles and the wisdom they gained along the way. We're cooking up something special, so tune in every Thursday. Listen to Eating While Broke on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hello, acclaimed comics writer and notorious Scott Summers hater, Rosie Knight.
Well, hello, Emmy-winning podcaster and totally unbiased Targaryen royal supporter, Jason Concepcion.
Rosie, somehow the X-Ray Vision podcast has returned. It feels so good.
It does. And like always, we'll be here every week covering the wide world of TV, movies, comics, and geek culture.
That's right. We'll be talking about Batman, heroes of that stature, and of course, we'll be inviting our friends in the industry to come geek out with us and share stories. We'll hear from TV writers, from actors, comics creators, pop culture critics, and more.
Nothing is off the table because geek culture is pop culture, and we can't wait to share our love of it all with you every single week.
Listen to X-Ray Vision on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get emotional with me, Radhi Devlukia, in my new podcast, A Really Good Cry. We're going to talk about and go through all the things that are sometimes difficult to process alone. We're going to go over how to regulate your emotions, diving deep into holistic personal development, and just building your mindset to have a happier, healthier life. We're going to be talking with some of my best friends.
I didn't know we were going to go there on this.
People that I admire.
When we say listen to your body, really tune into what's going on.
Authors of books that have changed my life.
Now you're talking about sympathy, which is different than empathy, right?
And basically have conversations that can help us get through this crazy thing we call life.
I already believe in myself. I already see myself. And so when people give me an opportunity, I'm just like, oh, great, you see me too.
We'll laugh together, we'll cry together, and find a way through all of our emotions. Never forget, it's okay to cry, as long as you make it a really good one. Listen to A Really Good Cry with Radhi Devlukia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Trap Nerds Podcast.
This is not an episode, it's a promo.
You know what it is. Promo time. We in this piece.
Trap Nerds. Real niggas like you never heard.
Join the Trap Nerds podcast every Monday and listen to us discuss all things inside and out of blurred culture.
So what if Tarantino squashes his beef with Marvel and be like,
oh God, just see how many foot shots of road we'll see I'll be down with. Make you know gonna be extra racing. With the best movie and TV reviews from a blurred perspective.
I think if Bo DeMayo hadn't got fired, Kevin Feige would be in trouble right now.
Preach. We giving you reliable gaming news and real, genuine game reviews.
I'll stand for Lightning.
Why does she have 3 games?
Because she a bad...
I hate you so much right now.
Listen to the Trap Nerds Podcast on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I get goosebumps when I hear, like, those are the debt-free screams that we have, or all the versions. Not everybody did a debt-free scream, but the versions of debt-free celebrations that everybody did for this series just all gave me goosebumps. So I love that we were able to share Catherine's story when she was, so everyone had to go through a screening process before we interviewed them. And we kind of asked them just some like general questions and some questions that would be helpful. Like, what would you say to someone out there who's where you were before you started the journey? We asked everybody that. And Catherine's answer stuck with me. The most daunting part is the number. And when you really sit and break down your income and debt and start to make a plan, it's so much more manageable to wrap your head around. And it's so true. When we were writing the book, we talked a lot about dopamine and how shopping is a dopamine hit. It's one of the reasons we shop, but it's the actual anticipation of the shopping that provides a higher release of dopamine than the actual act of shopping. And it is always the anticipation of something that is either scarier or more enjoyable than the actual act of it. And I think about vacation. Leading up to vacation is so much more exciting than actually being on vacation, especially if you're on vacation with children.
That's not vacation. This is going away as a family.
Raising your children in another location. Yeah. Which probably some of you are doing right now. But like the most daunting part is thinking about the number or looking at your 90-day transaction inventory, anticipating what you will find. The anticipation of what you will find is always scarier than what it is when you actually sit down, break it down, make a plan, and wrap your head around it.
I think it can feel like pulling off a Band-Aid a bit, and some people want to do it very quickly and others take more time to kind of build up and ease into it. But what we hear from everybody is that by the time they actually are able to look at it, there's much more relief on the other end. There was so much more fear and concern leading up to looking at the numbers, and usually relief. There can come the frustration or feeling overwhelmed, certainly, but at least relief in knowing what it is that I'm dealing with. And I can now make a plan rather than it just being scary. One of the things that stood out to me, though, in this actual interview was how she referenced values-based spending. I don't think she used those words exactly, but talking about how self-reflection helped her to debate whether or not something was worth spending on. And she, before that, was describing how she was spending so much money going out with friends and started to realize it wasn't even what she actually enjoyed. And I know you and I have talked about this a lot on the podcast related to values-based spending. For you specifically, Jen, with beer, like I would go out to breweries because it's where my friends were hanging out. And that can be an inexpensive hangout. A lot of breweries have games you can play and and you can bring your kids. And so to get a beer and hang out with friends is inexpensive. But for you, you're like, I don't like beer, so it's not worth it at all. Mm-hmm. Like even that, well, you used to be able to get a beer for $3. Now it's like $8 to $12. Yeah. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, it's different stages though. So if your idea of hanging out is spending $100 to go out to dinner or $100 like ticket somewhere, then maybe jumping straight to inviting people to your home for a glass of wine from Aldi is not the next step. Maybe the next step is the brewery where you're getting $5 to $8 beers instead of, $100, $150 like tickets and meals. It can be a step down, right? It doesn't have to be straight from whatever you're doing to spending nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also the ability to still hang out with friends, still show up to the brewery.
Yes.
But if you don't like the beer, you don't got to get the beer. But anyways, that was essentially Catherine finding that this process of journeying to become debt-free informed her more about her spending, what she actually enjoyed. And that self-reflection piece is something you never lose. Once you build it, you can maintain it even beyond becoming debt-free.
It's a mindset of curiosity. It is building that curiosity muscle to self-reflect and debate if something is worth it to you. It can be worth it to you. Anything can be worth it to you. But if we don't create that habit and that mindset of self-reflection, then everything is worth it. We don't have any parameters. We don't have any boundaries. And so then we kind of lose what is truly worth it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those gifts that can come. You don't anticipate what all a debt-free journey is going to teach you, but all of us inevitably come out the other side with, I never anticipated that I'd learn this, but here's what I still get to take with me. Kind of the gifts of what I thought was going to be super cumbersome, super overwhelming. And now here I am actually learning more and investing in myself in different ways and being creative. And there are silver linings to this whole journey, not just the debt freedom, but beyond that of what we can learn and take with us. So I appreciated Catherine kind of highlighting that. And then we asked her for an update.
Yes, we got an update from Catherine. So here's what she says. Since I paid off my debt in October 2022, I achieved one big financial goal that I discussed in the video, which was the purchase of a condo. Woo-woo. My boyfriend and I purchased a condo in November 2023. He's also debt-free and paid off his student loans shortly after graduating. Because we were both debt-free, we were able to put income previously going towards debt to our housing deposit fund. We had a crazy experience with the competitive housing market and high interest rates, but we were able to finally get a condo, our 16th offer near our families. Through this process, I learned so much about negotiating and the importance of knowing your comfort level.
This is exciting because she wrapped up saying, when we asked, what do you hope to do now that you've become debt free? It was, I hope to save up for a down payment on a house. So it is a beautiful thing to be on this side and get the update that she did do it. And there you go. There's another gift you get to take with you after accomplishing debt freedom is that you can accomplish things. You can build upon that accomplishment and keep going. Like she was able to do this one thing. Now she's able to say she's going to do this next thing and do it, despite being up against some really crazy odds and difficulties. I'm so glad for you.
Yeah, oh man, the housing markets. But yeah, when you are debt-free and you have that lower debt to income ratio, then it can make the interest payments a little bit more manageable. And remember, interest, it will go down. It will. Don't quote me on that. Please don't sue me. But like it ebbs and flows, right? So, and you can always refinance when it goes down. So if homeownership is something that is truly a value to you, it doesn't have to be, but if it is something that you value, then definitely getting in while the market is not as competitive, because when the market is competitive, it is traumatic. 16th offer. Yeah, we experienced something very similar, but way past 16. But yeah, Catherine, I feel you. But congratulations, girl.
Yes, we're so excited. We're still celebrating with you and celebrating all your subsequent accomplishments that you've had since then. Speaking of accomplishments, but not needing to wait at all. There's no 16 offers happening over here.
No,
it's one offer.
First time accepted. The bill of the week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Hi, Jen and Jill. This is Sean calling from Tennessee. My bill of the week is that I was inspired by your episode 381, the 6-week Roth IRA challenge, to finally jump in and open a Roth IRA in my husband's name and my name for 2023. And I wanted to say that I appreciate Jill's vulnerability in talking about how you need to invest the funds once you put them in the Roth IRA, because I could definitely see myself sort of dusting off my hands and walking away after opening them and not realizing that I actually needed to do that. So thank you so much for the show. And I'm hoping this bill of the week is going to pay off in the long run.
I am shook. I am so happy. I'm so...
this episode is too much for us.
It's all I wanted when I wrote that episode. I was like, if one person opens a Roth IRA and puts money in it and gets that 2023 deadline, if one person does it, this episode will be worth it.
All worth it.
Sean, you have made my day.
Yes.
But
not just her and her partner, which is amazing.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
This is too much. This is we're celebrating debt freedom.
You never know how something
IRAs.
is going to land when you've never done it before, and so I didn't know how that would land. But I am, and we have heard from other people who contributed more to their 2023 Roth IRA. I maxed out our 2023 Roth IRAs because of that challenge, because I felt not convicted, but like positively challenged by my own self-imposed challenge.
Well, you're asking other people to do it, so it's only fair that you try and do it too.
And I definitely did not have the funds. It was not a smart idea. I shouldn't have, but I had in the back of my head, every dollar you put into that Roth IRA, you can take back out penalty free. So if I do need it, I can have it within a week.
Yeah.
But I can't put it in after the deadline.
Oh, that's good.
That was my my rationalization. And we've missed the 2023 deadline has passed. That's okay. But we still have 2024.
Yeah.
And so if you are worried, put the money in, because you can take the only money that is tied to it with penalty is the growth. So if I put in 1,000 and it grows to 1,010, I got to leave that 10 in there till 65, but I can take that 1,000 back at any time penalty free. So know that you can always take it back out, but you can't always put it in.
To count towards, the specific years you want. Sean, thank you so much for calling in and sharing this with us. This is very, very exciting. And I am so glad that my vulnerability helped you. If I can teach you how to avoid the mistakes that I've made, I am here for it.
I made that mistake too. I left my money into an IRA rollover for a year uninvested. I mean, everybody does it.
It's an easy thing to do.
Everybody does it.
But you did it. You did it all. And here you are, probably, Sean, inspiring other people to do this as well. Go open a Roth IRA.
If you want to leave us a bill of the week, then visit frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. Leave us your bill. We are excited to hear it. It probably will make our day.
It's the VC Show. What's up? I'm Vince Carter, and my podcast, The VC Show, is coming back.
4-on-1 up. That's what they came to see.
Season 2 of The VC Show is going to be bigger and better than ever. Every week during the NBA season, I'll give you my real insights and opinions on the league.
Oh, nice move by Carter! What? Yes, he did!
I have a lot to talk about, and it won't always be basketball. If you listen to the show, you will get to know me, my life, and the things I care about. My family, friends, golf, music, and much more.
Vinsanity reigns supreme.
Subscribe to the pod and listen to The VC Show with me, Vince Carter, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, it's over! It's over, ladies and gentlemen!
It's the The VC Show.
What's good? It's Colleen Witt, and Eating While Broke is back for Season 3. Brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. We're serving up some real stories and life lessons from people like Van Lathan.
TMZ was starting a tour. Harvey came and took the tour. By July, I'm on TV every day. I endear myself to the audience. He comes in, he goes, "We're going to give you a raise." I think maybe a year, 2 years after that, I was a producer.
DC Young Fly.
It wasn't really no way for us to make income off of Vine like that. It was more so notoriety. Once that popped off, it was like people was following it. I didn't know how big it was. I didn't know people was doing this on their spare time. I was like, don't do that, kids. That's bad. It was crazy that it had to be that real and that harsh.
Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Our mission was we was telling everybody in the hood, we finna go meet Eazy-E. We about to come back and do a video. Of course, we didn't know, so we was lying like a mother.
Little do we know, we speak in reality and we're gonna come back with a bus and camera crew.
And many more. They're sharing the dishes that got them through their struggles and the wisdom they gained along the way. We're cooking up something special, so tune in every Thursday. Listen to Eating While Broke on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hello, acclaimed comics writer and notorious Scott Summers hater, Rosie Knight.
Well, hello, Emmy-winning podcaster and totally unbiased Targaryen royal supporter, Jason Concepcion.
Rosie, somehow the X-Ray Vision podcast has returned. It feels so good.
It does. And like always, we'll be here every week covering the wide world of TV, movies, comics, and geek culture.
That's right. We'll be talking about Batman, heroes of that stature, and of course, we'll be inviting our friends in the industry to come geek out with us and share stories. We'll hear from TV writers, from actors, comics creators, pop culture critics, and more.
Nothing is off the table because geek culture is pop culture, and we can't wait to share our love of it all with you every single week.
Listen to X-Ray Vision on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, host of Everyday Better, an award-winning weekly podcast dedicated to personal development. Whether you're looking for ways to shift your mindset or seeking more fulfillment in your life, we've got you covered.
You can build internal resources. That's what the study of psychology is about, building internal resources.
Turning towards is one of the most important elements of successful relationships, no matter what kind of relationship it is.
The thing that underpins all of this productivity stuff is finding a way to make the journey itself enjoyable. The journey is the destination.
The beauty of uncertainty is infinite possibility. When you don't know what's next, you don't know what's next. And thus, anything can be next.
Join me as we dive into captivating stories and research-backed ideas that have empowered me and others to lead lives with more clarity and intention. Everyday Better, making growth an everyday practice. Listen to Everyday Better on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
There's something different about the conversations we have late at night.
They often spin off in strange and wonderful directions.
So we asked, what if those laid-back conversations were with some of the biggest musicians in the world and some of the most interesting new artists we love right now?
Midnight Chats has already welcomed Tame Impala, Charlie XCX, Mark Ronson, Vince Staples, and many others.
Our biggest and best series is happening right now.
So join me, Greg Cochran,
and me, Stuart Stubbs,
as we talk to our favourite musicians about the things they don't usually talk about.
I'm feeling more okay with being a diva.
There was one birthday when I went to a graveyard.
Every partner that I've ever had, when they look at my texts with my mother, are like, how are you sharing this information?
Listen to the new series of Midnight Chats every Tuesday night on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favourite shows.
And now it's time for
the lightning round. Pew, 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 pew. All right, so today's lightning round, in the theme of values-based spending, what is something you are not spending on this summer so you can save for something bigger?
You go first.
Me? Okay, so things, what am I not spending on this summer? So I think I've mentioned this before. I wanted to go on a cruise so badly with Travis and Kai and leave Atlas behind. I'm tired of him. He's over a year old. I mean, we need a break. He's so needy. But I decided not to do that this year. So that next year maybe we could go on a bigger, like take a bigger vacation next year.
With everybody or still just with Kai and Travis?
TBD. TBD.
See how mature Atlas is by then?
Yeah, he bites. So he's not the person you want to take on vacation. You don't want to take a biter on vacation.
No, you can't have a biter.
Like if your friend bites, they hulk out, scream indiscriminately, like whether they're happy, sad, bored, just like screams.
Dive off the top bunk.
If they do dive off the top bunk and you have to catch them by their shirt so they don't break their neck. That's not the friend you want to take on vacation.
You really did give birth to something very wild. Number 2 was like everything of you and Travis, all that pent up energy.
Yeah.
Just came out in Atlas.
Yep.
He's amazing. He's walking now, and he's not just walking. He's running, climbing, tipping, falling, jumping, diving.
Yes. Not jumping yet, but all of the above.
You got to save up for medical expenses.
Oh, I already
for
do.
Atlas.
Here's the thing. Part of the reason why we didn't take that cruise is because of the medical expenses incurred by Atlas.
Oh my gosh.
That's part of the reason. So
you're like, you got your fun. You got to visit the hospital.
So I can save for something bigger. Yeah, his medical expenses. That's my something bigger.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Jill?
Oh, man,
What
Jen.
are you trying to do? Not do.
I'm trying to do so much. I'm still in this phase of not traveling a bunch. Now, I am going on a trip back to PA where we're from for a wedding, and we're going to have a staycation over my birthday. Yay. But those things are already paid for. Like we had already bought tickets back in the springtime, and I used points to book a local hotel for my birthday. So really, I am not spending on travel or much activity throughout the summer. We're really just leaning into enjoying the season, doing fun, free things, probably going to go to the beach a ton. And I would love to be able to take an international vacation, whether that's in the fall or winter, potentially just in the new year. But that's kind of any extra dollars that I can put towards that is what's happening.
Girl, you ain't going anywhere in December or January.
I know. I do know that. I know. And why? Because we wrote a book.
We wrote a book, and it's going to be available for pre-order soon.
Yes.
So soon.
They did say this summer. Whew. So that could be any minute now.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to let you know.
100%. The minute we know, you will know.
We will be so shameless on this podcast, on social media.
Yes. Because we know, I mean, you've been asking for it all year, and we've been dying to give it to you all year. So we can't wait.
That's going to be so good. Yeah. Well, we hope that you guys are considering what you value most and ways to get that either in low cost or no cost ways as much as possible so that you can put more money towards the things that you truly love and value. Know that there's really fun things that you can do this summer, like continuing to tune in to these debt-free stories to keep inspiring you through the summer. Anything else in our backlog that can help you through. Also, our Friendletter, please sign up for that. Also, thanks so much for listening. We love reading your kind reviews like this one. We love the short and sweet ones. This one comes from Harper166. It is 5 stars, says, great encouragement. Being frugal can seem a lonely path. It's awesome to have frugal friends to make it fun and seem so achievable. That's
Yay.
amazing. I'm glad.
Thank you, Harper166.
Yeah, it can feel lonely, especially that debt payoff journey. If you're in a debt payoff journey, call in a bill of the week.
Yeah.
So you can feel not alone.
Each time you pay something off, whether it isn't just one part of your student loan or one credit card, call in. We'd love to hear more debt-free celebrations in the bill of the week line. It is a space for that. Even if you paid off your debt a long time ago, but you never got the opportunity to celebrate it by calling into any podcasts, we're your girls. Call in.
Here we are. We're always looking for a reason to celebrate.
Call
and
in.
Scream.
And please take a minute to leave a rating and review. It really helps potential new listeners figure out what the show is all about. If they're interested in debt payoff stories, you can let them know that we've got them. And thank you so much.
See you next time.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani. Jill, can you regale us with your story of Cancun?
Oh, geez. Yes. So, okay.
Just the first.
I know. Yeah. I'll make it short and sweet.
Day.
I was able to get away, Eric and I, not just me, for our anniversary like a couple months ago. And I was able to put all of that on points. I had signed up for a new credit card, knowing that I was going to want to take a trip. So this was planned. So we pretty much paid for the whole thing, flights and the all-inclusive in Cancun on points. We show up to the resort and they're trying to tell us that we are not in the room that we had booked. It's a big resort and they had a section that was adults only. The rest of the resort was open to minors and families and kids and all of that. But there was this one section that was adults only that we had booked. Our confirmation said it, but the resort was saying that on their end, it was coming up as just a standard junior suite. And they're going to put us in this other section with all the kids and the like water park that's right outside the door with like all the screaming children. Kids are great, but I intentionally looked for an adults only. So that's why I booked this resort. And they're like, we're sorry, you're just in this other section. We're giving you that room. And I was not going to have it. I'm like, there's a mistake somewhere that is not my mistake. And I should not have to suffer because of that. The resort essentially wiped their hands clean of it. They're like, well, there's nothing we can do. This is how the reservation is coming through. You need to talk with the third-party booking site, which I booked it again through the travel site of the credit card. So I called them and I stayed at the front desk of the resort. I'm like, I'm not going away. I'm not going to make you think that I'm a problem that's leaving. I'm going to stay right here.
Stay strong. I'm going to annoy you. You cannot ignore me.
No matter which way we slice this, someone is going to get me in the room that I want to be in. 4 hours later.
Like that meme.
Jennifer.
4 hours later.
Yes. And that feels nice now. Like, oh yeah. 4 hours later. Yeah. Imagine standing at a front desk in a location you're unfamiliar with, not knowing if you're going to get a room for 4 hours on hold, I probably talked to 8 different people on the phone. I kept getting bounced around. Anyhow, finally talked with a supervisor who ended up being able to book me in the type of room that I wanted, and I didn't have to pay for it. So they booked it under my name. No money had to come out of my pocket. I was reassigned to the right room. And bonus, they actually upgraded me. The credit card travel company upgraded the room for my troubles. So we had a swim up room. And before I knew that he had upgraded me, I asked for travel credit for my troubles because now 4 hours of my vacation has been lost to this thing that was not my mistake. And he was like, we can give you $100. And I'm like, I'm gonna want $200 because it's not just me, it's also my husband who's been impacted by this. So like 100 for me, 100 for him. And they're like, okay, we can do that. They're like, but mind you, we did also upgrade your room. I'm like, that's awesome. I didn't know that you did that, and I didn't ask for that. So I'm still gonna want the 200. So yeah, we got a room upgrade in the right section of the hotel. $200 travel credit sitting and waiting for me in my credit card travel rewards center. And it ended up being a great vacation. I'm still sad to have lost that afternoon. But at the end of the day, if you would have asked me, will you pay 4 hours of your time for a swim up room and a $200 travel credit, I probably would have said yes.
You know, it is better than sitting through a timeshare sales spiel.
Yeah.
You know, it's better than that.
Yeah, I never would do that, but you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was quite something. I'm so glad it worked out because 4 hours in, I was still facing the possibility of not getting to be placed in the part of the resort that I had booked. But the fact that it did work out was a beautiful thing. And we did have a really lovely 3 days enjoying that pool outside of our room.
Several takeaways. The first is that this was through the Capital One platform. You had a similar trouble through the Chase travel platform, and Chase was unwilling to do anything for you.
Help me. It is
so
true.
Capital One was more flexible. Another thing is to be careful when going through these travel sites. It's always much safer to go, especially if you're going with Chase. I probably will never book through their platform because they have unreliable customer service when there's a problem, and B, they have so many travel partners that you can transfer points out to that you can just book straight through hotels and airlines.
Just know that sometimes your points won't go as far. I did make that mistake one time when I transferred Chase points over to, I want to say it was like Hilton or something. And as far as Chase's site went, those points should have covered a night in a room. But once they were in the Hilton or Marriott site, it was only half of what I needed through their platform for a room. So I had to buy extra points to book. So yeah, you can get bitten sometimes that way.
Yeah, you do have to be aware of the brand or the airline and just
the conversion.
Do a conversion, do a comparison. And that, you don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah. Another thing that I am making mental note of for myself is they did offer that we could go take the room that they were offering us while we tried to figure out this issue of not being booked in the right room. And I said no. And I'm very glad that I did, because I feel like if I would have taken a room and I would have been out of their site, and if the travel company would have known, I am somewhere, I'm in a room, then they might have been less likely to have helped me out. But the fact that I hadn't yet made it into the resort and we couldn't eat or get anything to drink until we had the bracelets on. So I was not yet in a room. I wasn't able to kind of be pawned off like, you're fine. We don't need to do anything for you. So I'm glad that I didn't kind of let them move me someplace else and forget about me. I'm glad that I stayed and I kept. Of course, some people aren't going to have it in them, and you're willing to just take the section in the kids screaming area, and that'd be fine too. But I was willing to fight.
Jill's a fighter.
It's the VC Show. What's up? I'm Vince Carter, and my podcast, The VC Show, is coming back. Season 2 of The VC Show is going to be bigger and better than ever. Every week during the NBA season, I'll give you my real insights and opinions on the league. Vinsanity reigns supreme. Subscribe to the pod and listen to The VC Show with me, Vince Carter, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's The VC Show.
It's brand new, Season 2. I'm Marissa Thalberg.
And I'm Stephen Wolf Pereira. And we're excited to be back having bigger, bolder, and always real conversations.
Straight from the C-suite front lines of marketing, media, and more.
We have great friends joining from people you may know, like Vilmer Valderrama and Bobby Burke.
And people you'll want to know. So grab a coffee or, hey, even an Aperol Spritz and come join us on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart.
Listen to Brand New on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's good? It's Colleen Witt, and Eating While Broke is back for Season 3. Brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. We're serving up some real stories and life lessons from people like Van Lathan, DC Young Fly, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and many more. They're sharing the dishes that got them through their struggles and the wisdom they gained along the way. We're cooking up something special, so tune in every Thursday. Listen to Eating While Broke on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
If you love comedy, movies, and Hollywood satire, you're going to want to listen to a brand new podcast called Get It to Dutch.
In Get It to Dutch, we play 3 aspiring screenwriters on a quest to get a script to big-time Hollywood producer Dutch Huxley.
Each week on the podcast, we perform a movie script right before your ears.
It's like going to a movie with your eyes closed.
And we have amazing guest stars, including Tim Robinson, Rob Hubel, Lily Sullivan, Jamie Moyer, and Weird Al Yankovic.
Listen to Get It to Dutch, a screenwriter's journey on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Trap Nerds Podcast.
This is not an episode.
I'm pretty sure this is a promo.
You know what it is. We in this piece. Trap Nerds, real niggas like you never heard. We giving you reliable gaming news with the best movie and TV reviews from a blurred perspective.
All things inside and out of blurred culture.
Listen to the Trap Nerds Podcast on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.